an industry that is growing, or folks who are doing something very interesting in their part of the business. And today I have invited Dr. Rajeev Sinha from Capgemini. Dr. Rajeev did his PhD in North Carolina, and subsequent to that, he has been a consultant for the last 25 years, consulting for a bunch of companies like Exxon, our local Exxon Mobil, International Paper, Cargill up in Minnesota, and a whole bunch of companies. Probably talk about some of those. So he's seen logistics from quite a different perspective, from energy trading to food products to oil and paper mills and so on and so forth. So it's a very seen. And most recently, he was a part of the SAP team, which was leading their digital strategy. He is the senior manager for the logistics division, or rather part of the logistics team, to grow the Capgemini SAP-based supply chain, SAP-based supply chain practice here in the Houston area and beyond. So he's part of the team, which is part of the lead. So after the Q&A is done, some people have sent him, or are giving him resume, getting a business card free to do so. And with that, I'll hand over the stage to you, Dr. Rajeev. I'm going to step out and probably plan back. I'm seeing this maybe one time. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor.
All right, thank you.
So, what we're going to do is we talk about logistics. So it's one of my pet topics, and I've been researching on this. So I'll try to introduce you what logistics in motion means, how it is different from general logistics. We'll talk a little bit about a case study on farm to market, and we also try to share with you a little bit behind logistics, what goes in logistics. And then lastly, we'll talk about how logistics is being using every day-to-day life, and all technology is connected, how technology is shaping up logistics, and the last and the most important thing is what type of career opportunities you all find yourself when you graduate. What's market offering you, and how you can pick one or two, and then how you can align with those so you can get a better job offers. So with that, a little bit about myself. So I live pretty close from here at KD, and I'm an engineer by myself, by my undergrad, and work some research. I'm a capability lead and professors just introduced to me. Last 22 years I've been working in logistics area, and I've enjoyed my journey. So for me, that's what I live and breathe. I enjoy supply chain and logistics. You see some of the clients I have served, it was a privilege to see so many clients, and they're all, if you see, they're all very different, from ExxonMobil to Apple, to Tyson Food, to Caterpillar, to Boeing. It's all very, very different kinds. The good thing is, what's common in all of these is logistics and supply chain. None of these companies could be where they are without logistics. T-Mobile, it's very interesting. I was there. They were preparing to launch iPhone 6 a couple of years ago. They were trying to get demand, but to get a tap of the customer demand. Plus, they're trying to convince Apple that we need how many iPhones. Apple is rationing that because big launch, they don't want to give everything. So in that, how would you do that? So you remember when if you have remembered those days when you go to the website and try to order it, it will give you back on it. We'll take your order, but I'll give you your iPhone 3 months or some outrageous days, so things like that. And then all of a sudden you'll see the sales 30, but then the phone comes in 7 days. So things like that. So we went and let's all sit down. I gave you an example where this is all discussed in logistics strategy, which also becomes part of you when you become logistics. obviously different industries have their own challenges and own solutions. So now to our core subject, what is logistics in motion? Very, and also unique concept, and why it is unique, I'm just trying to explain this in one slide. So if you talk about a classic logistics definition, if I ask anybody, you read in your text or Google, it will say logistics is moving goods, people from point A to point B. Is that right? That's what pretty much logistics means. And then if somebody says, okay, if I hire you, what will be the goal of a logistics staff or logistics department? The goal is always to save money. That is the key goal, because if you are ExxonMobil or Apple, you're producing something, you're shipping out, you're hired to try to find out efficient way to ship so you can save money. So that is the goal of a classic logistics. So when I call logistics in motion, what I mean, and this came out all of my 20 plus experiences moving around the field, what I felt that, or what I realized that there are a lot of moves which they don't know even their destination. It's funny just to think that there are shipments going out which they don't have a destination on. Just think of a scenario where shipment is going out, they don't know when to deliver, or just going out. There are scenarios where they even don't know what will be loaded in those containers or trucks or rail cars. They just don't know. The rail car is sitting in your warehouse on your yard, and they just don't know what is going to be shipped. So these are all unique, which defies or challenges the original concept or classic definition of logistics. Also, if you see what it does, the biggest shift is in the goal. The goal in this logistics in motion, which I call it, is more than saving money, it's also making money. So that also reshapes the whole thinking. So when I say, if you are in logistics department and you make money, then obviously you are embarking a different type of thought process and different type of thinking. It's just not getting your product from A to B with the highest customer satisfaction. That is also always there, but then you're also looking for opportunities. And also, I write this word, it's also involved not only moving tangibles, which is very visible, you load something, a cargo or commodity, but there are also intangibles where I'll try to explain you in my next few slides what I mean. So basically, you're not only shipping tangible commodities, but you are shipping logistics as a service. That's what logistics is. Everybody clear with that definition of logistics? So let's make this an open discussion forum. So if you all have any want to participate, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll try to. So this is a little bit of a unique concept. It goes beyond a little bit of the course materials you have studied, but it's really nice to understand what challenges is in the market and how you can help. So there are three parts to this logistics in motion. So it's a lecture series which I'm building on. There will be a podcast available in a year. It should be available through Apple Store, where we will have lectures and presentations and all this. So that's divided into three parts. Unit 1 is physical motion. So logistics in motion using physical. So first case study, and we do it by case study, and the one you see in green is what we're going to discuss this a little bit. We put 10-15 minutes to understand what I mean. How logistics in motion applies to a farm to market scenario, and it's an endless journey, which means that it's a loop which logistics never stops. Second thing is a case study from a chemical business where the goal was to make money. And just for an example, what I mean here is, so there was a client of mine who, if anybody's familiar with chemical business, you know, we have special equipments to ship chemicals. You know, a lot of chemicals cannot be shipped in a regular chemical drums or box, tanks. You need them special with liners and etc. etc. So what happens is a lot of these chemical company owns those containers. Just because there's not general manufacturers, because it's for certain chemicals, some chemicals are proprietary, so you don't want to even borrow it. So you know what you need and you make your own equipment or you have it fabricated into that. But, so what they do is, so they will ship it. So in this example, which I have tried to build this case upon, is that the chemical manufacturer which ships a specialty chemical to its affiliate in Singapore. So he pays the freight, the container goes there. The logistics department thinks, okay, now we have to bring it back. So what happens when you bring it back? You pay money to the shipping company, the container comes back. Then they say, okay, you know what? I have enough supply of equipment. I don't need it for the next few days. So let's trade that. So what they do is they find a customer who can use that specialty tank with the same chemical composition, and that container was getting either shipped to Australia with chemicals in it. So basically you're renting that, and the container gets to Europe, either way which it gets closer to US, and they'll ship out there, and then they start finding a customer in Europe to ship it here. So guess what happens in that case? So instead of paying to bring that empty container back, they made money of leasing it, and they made twice or thrice more money than what they had initially thought. So that's the case of let's make money. Another example of where I'm going next. So it looks very kind of funny and interesting that you are on a train and you don't know where you're going, isn't it? And that happens very routinely in some of these grain commodity business. So what happens is you load grains, and just I'm talking about thousands of rail cars a day. So it's being loaded, but they don't know where they're going. So they know the direction. So let me correct myself. They know the direction that if they're loading in Kansas, they're going east. But they don't know if they're going to Atlanta, going to Memphis, going to New York area, wherever. So what they do is they load it, and once they start rolling, they start looking for where is the highest market for that product. So if it is, and you're talking about bushels, and if it is 10 cents a bushel, you're talking about 110 rail cars. It's a lot of money. So they will divert the rail to where it is going. They have to pay some diversion fees and et cetera, but then that's where they go. So when the train leaves, when it's even, the guy who's loading, if you ask him, where is this train going? He says, I don't know. And even the train pulls out, he doesn't know. He knows he's going east. That's all he knows. So that's a very interesting case of how. Other is containers. You don't know who's the consignee. It's funny, you are on a ship, this big ship with loaded containers. You have one of your containers. You don't know where it's going to. Who's the buyer? Who's the customer? That was also a very interesting case, and that was one of my clients I was working at, and that's why I went to help them. They said, Rajeev, we are facing a lot of problems. I said, what do you do? I said, we ship out, but we don't know where you're going. And then, but they want the paper to be that. If you're talking about exports, you have declarations. You just can't walk in any country. You have the paper documentations and so on and so forth. So this was a case where, for the containers, they had, like in China, they have the agriculture season, which starts somewhere in April, May time. Right? So what these companies do, they make fertilizers, and they want to ship it ahead of time because it takes 35 days. And those use of fertilizer season is only 15 days. Now, if you are close to farming, there are certain type of fertilizers you only use at certain time or period of your farming activities. You just don't spray fertilizer every time. So there's only like a 2 weeks window when all the fertilizer has to be consumed, and it takes 35 days to get there. So how you do that? And you don't know. So what you do? There's a lot of intelligence behind it. Supply, demand, how much it loads, and they do all this mathematics. They load, say, 30 containers of fertilizers and ship it to China. Then what they do is when they are closer, as they get closer, like 10 days before the discharge date, they start looking, okay, where's the season? Because China is good. So they might have a monsoon or season which came in earlier than late. So they start diverting containers to feed their That's also a unique case, and which explains you who is the consignee. I don't know. Even the shipper doesn't know. And what they do is, obviously, they're not doing anything illegal. What they all of these mega companies, they have associates or office or partners in most of this world. So they will have, we call virtual consignee. So like I have an office in Shenzhen or anywhere else, and it's just an office. It's not. I don't have a warehouse. I just have a location. So you can ship it legally, but you know you won't be able to store it. You don't have any mechanism. You don't consume it. But that's what they do. So they put a consignee called virtual consignee and they try to find out the real buyer for that. And that's the case. Who is the consignee? And barge. I know. Have you all seen barge? Close enough. Anyway, so barge is made of a tugboat, which tugs different barges. Good barges could be around 15 to 16 barges max, and they pull through. A lot of trade barge used for commodity. There are corridors which barge sail in United States, Upper Mississippi and Lower Mississippi, two very popular commodity barge trading. They have locks. There is a whole mechanism to it. A lot of value. This goes down to basically New Orleans or comes south, and then it gets loaded or consumed within its way or gets loaded into vessels and find offshore. So that's the kind of model. There is a North Pacific Columbia River system up in Seattle area where they have these barges. But in this case, what happens is, it's also a very interesting business. So when the barge gets loaded, you have a name and a consignee. Like let's take an example. Let's say St. Paul, Minnesota, barge was loaded with corn, and it's going sailing south because the only way you can sail it doesn't go south, it goes south. And what do you do in between then? It was supposedly sold to, what's your name, sir? Sean. Say it was sold to Sean. So what Sean thinks is, okay, now I'm in Raymond, and say you are in Memphis, and you say, oh, you know, I found a better customer in St. Louis, I'll sell it. So because barges are slow, and while it's coming to St. Louis, he will sell it to St. Louis. So the barge goes to St. Louis and offload and unload. And it's not a physical offload. So the guy he sells it to, he might say, you know what, I'll find a better one for Mexico, so I'm going to get it to Houston Port or New Orleans Port and then send it to them. So he changes the ownership or title of those barges and commodities. Thus, the scenario come out here. Because the commodity which is loaded in one of his barges doesn't know where it is and doesn't know when it's going to go. It could have got offloaded in Memphis, could have got offloaded in St. Louis, or maybe destined to go to Africa or anywhere abroad. He doesn't know, so where it's going. So these are very unique physical moves, which again, I call it logistics in motion because it defies the classical definition of logistics. Any questions on this? Any thoughts? Anybody want to share? Good. That was part one of logistics in motion. Part two. So remember that part one was called physical motion. Part two is logical motion. So here there is no physical commodity or ship. So that was one thing. So it was a physical, you just didn't know where to go, when to go, and those things. Here, you're just talking about logistics as a service, basically virtual. So basically, one example which I've seen in my industrial experiences is barter. It's very interesting to see how a bartering could be applied to a logistics definition. So what happens is a lot of companies, and we'll see in one of the cases, they have their own equipments. When I say equipments, just for example, ExxonMobil have 20,000 plus own railroads. They own those railroads. Tyson Foods, which I work, they have huge network of truck fleets, which goes in from chicken, soybean, McDonald's, and things like that. These guys have these different transportation equipments. What they do is they barter. So what is the definition of barter? You give something and you exchange. Barter is an exchange of motives. Probably not having a financial transaction. That is the key definition of a spot. And they do that. So what they'll tell you is, okay, just to say ExxonMobil, they say, you know what, I need to send some tank cars up in Canada to bring oil down to my refinery in Baytown. But then they'll say, you know what, well, I have some tank cars already, so you'll save time to send an empty tank car to get that. If you find a supplier or another company who already have tank cars, but he's looking for grain cars which he needs to trade. And say Exxon has a grain trade because they have sent something up and still sitting close to St. Nicholas. So what they do is they buy. They say, okay, I'll ship you 200 hopper rail cars and you give me 200 or whatever that ratio is in the tank. So both got win-win. So they bought. So that's an example of barter. Trading spaces is a pretty straightforward, it's not a unique concept where people buy or logistics, people have overcapacity or there are service providers makes living on trading. So what I mean here is, so some of these companies, they know like this fertilizer business or in this food business, the commodity business, they know that in harvest season, they will load approximately 50,000 rail cars. So there is to mitigate that supply, what they do is they have a contract with the rail car companies ahead of time and say, okay, next year, farming season, I have a contract for 30,000 rail cars, for example. So that's how the contract is. Cars are not with them. Cars is still with BNSF or Norfolk Southern, whichever rail companies they have a contract. But what happens here is, so now they have a 30,000 rail cars contracted to be there, but then they find that there is a demand for rail cars more, and there's somebody's paying them more or double. Depends on the season and supply demand elasticity. So what they do is they will sell the rail cars to another customer, just the rail car itself. That's what space. They're selling the space to somebody else to make more money. So that's a very classic example of trading spaces. So they are not in the business of doing that, but they are the consumer of their own rail cars, but then in this case, since they smell an opportunity to make more money by trading commodity, which is their business, rather than trading commodity in the trade space. And the goal is to make that trade. Hedging. It's also a remote, logistics is also sold and bought as a service on the commodity market. So if you go to mercantile exchange, you have logistics which is bought for different types, and you see that, which is also seen. So I think what I was trying to give you a picture is logistics is more than just physical, which again comes back to our original definition, why call it logistics in motion. So it's a physical move which has no destination move, so that defines classic. Here, logistics is a logical move. Any questions thus far? People understand logistics in motion? The last unit, on unit number 3, on I call this lecture series of logistics in motion, is enabling logistics itself. So, and you see there's a lot of topics, but this has been the biggest driver of change in or behavior of logistics, efficiency in logistics. These are all driving logistics programs in a way I've never seen. So, if we talk about digital logistics, is innovation. So, you remember this 5 years ago, and I remember that, I went and bought a garbage GPS for $500, and Black Friday. Today, I don't know where that GPS is even sitting, So that's what I'm saying, innovation. everybody's cell phone have GPS. They have applications, apps we call it. You can look, you can track. It's the shortest routes, longest route, everything possible. Innovation, shaping the whole world. Guys, this is the most important topic as a job seeker, or even if you want to continue your studies beyond your undergraduate. This is very important because everything you see today is digital. It's a big word, and it has got transformation. So digital, what it produces is, as soon as you put an address and you hit your GPS button, it is churning data, point to point, moment to moment. And guess what? Those data is being collected, which gives you, it helps you. Because guys, you see your traffic map, you see the red lines. How it is coming to you? It's coming to you because of your data. It senses your movement, that it's slow, and it puts all together and says, okay, it looks like 1,000 cars in that 100 yard, everybody's slow, and then gives you red line and yellow line and all that. So your data comes back to you. So what it means, it's all digital transformation. See how logistics is being managed through digital. So now you can see congestions, you can see alternate routes, and you can drive a lot of these decisions based on data which is digital driven, isn't it? If you see from other perspective, even we are so attuned of tracking our stuff. You know, you buy through Amazon, you get email, you even track where is it. It's on the truck. The truck is in the sugar land, and you get a lot of information of exactly. They even just a few days ago, they even sent me a picture that they had dropped me in my front porch. That was amazing. So with DHL, and then they gave me a picture. And I did not realize that I opened that and showed where they had dropped. So this is step beyond it. So that's the proof of the digital. So digital is changing the way we conduct business. It is trying to help us solve complexity. Today, if you are a manager in your logistics department, you can virtually see each and every product in your warehouse, in transit, at customer destination, right at your home, and you can make decisions. One good example also I'll share with you. So what happened working for Tyson and some other food companies, so they have to transfer poultry and meat product in a refrigerated way. And it goes to Japan, it goes to Far East, the Middle East, everywhere. One thing is, as a part of their rule regulation, they have to manage and record temperature and the variations of it throughout the journey. You can't just go dark and say, I don't know what happened, it melted, it thawed, and I refilled. You can't do that because it's food product. So what they do is, they have sensors in those refrigerated containers, if you can say, which they not only monitor, they manage. And they control the temperature of the containers. And what they also do is, that was the most interesting part, that the customers in Japan said that because it's so hard frozen, they cannot put it on shelf very quickly. Because in Japan, you don't have hard frozen stuff. They have to be seen as fresh, because it's sold as fresh. So to cut the short time, because some of these hard frozen might take days to thaw, to be where you can say it's fresh. So what they do is, as soon as they calculate a journey is less than 48 hours, they start cutting down the temperature or cranking down the temperature, where it starts thawing and starts getting, and when